welcome everybody. I think today's day 68 of compassionate response to COVID-19, and today I've got my old friend Paramananda, who did my first ever class actually in Tree Ratner in 1988, and we've continued to be friends since. Although I don't see that much of him these days, but there's quite a lot of history between us. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do some body work as usual, and then lead a little meditation. Then we'll get on to hearing about Paramananda's life, and we might have some technical. I don't know if we're going to have technical difficulties. We'll just cope with it as we go along. So. Okay, so if you want to just all stand up and we'll just do some body work. Okay, so begin by just rub your hands together. Give them a squeeze, bit of a squeeze, squeezing up your arms. And then just drumming with your fingers on the top of your head, and being aware of the contact of your feet and the ground. Be aware of your clothing touching your skin. The air, temperature of the air on different parts of your body, moisture on your skin. We're just trying to inhabit our physical experience. Sometimes we have to sort of just wait for ourselves to arrive into our bodies. And then just put your hands over your face and just holding your forehead. And curving your spine over, so it's as if you're kind of going a bit more into fetal position. Turning away from the world psychologically. So you're not expressing anything, you don't need to express anything to the world at the moment. I'm just enjoying your head being held by your hands. And take a few deeper breaths. And give your face a bit of a massage with your hands, a bit of a wash with your hands. And rub your hands together. And then just cup your elbow in one of your palms and go over the top, so trying to get onto the top of your spine. And wake yourself up, wake your top of your spine up, top of your shoulder. That's it, Paramananda. Okay, now however hard you, and be aware if you've got any sort of bodily condition, don't just take responsibility for yourself, but if you can you do it a bit harder? So really looking to wake ourselves up, our body up. And then the other side. And then down the outside of your arm, and off the back of your hand, and make it a little bit painful. And then palms of your hands. Up the inside of your arm. And round again. And then down the other arm. Palms. And then your chest, beating on your chest. Down the sides of your body. And then just gentle circling on your stomach. Clockwise circles. Just enjoying the sound of your hands brushing against your clothes. And then just lightly drumming on your kidneys at the back there. And then more heavily on your buttocks. Try to get the backs of your legs. And then down your legs as far as you can go. And then shaking everything out. Okay, so that's the stimulating part of the bodywork. So now we're just going to do a little bit of Qigong to smooth our energy out. So just wait for your breathing to calm down. And then just putting your hands on your stomach, just below your navel. And just very simply notice when you're breathing out, bend your knees. And notice when you're breathing in and straighten your knees. So if your head's, if you notice that you're not moving, you're probably a bit stuck in your head. So just put your thoughts to one side and just bend your knees on an out breath. Taking your whole torso down in one piece. Straighten your knees on the in breath. So it's down on the out breath. Coming up on the in breath. Down on the out breath. Up on the in breath. Down on the out breath. And then just put your hands out the front, so on the in breath, bringing your hands up to your chin, turning at the chin, down on the out breath, turning at the hips, up on the in breath, turning again, down on the out breath, turning at the hips, up on the in breath, down on the out breath. Then next time just keep going past your chin, up into the air, opening your chest out, arms down the sides, and again up the middle, imagining a ball of energy coming up the centre of your body and then expanding outwards at the top, again, up the middle of your body, opening your chest, hands out to the sides and down. Last one. Do it slowly. And then mindfully moving into your meditation posture. Just take your time. So we're going to do something that I call a grounding meditation. This is probably maybe a bit different from what Paramananda might do, but hey ho. Get this. Okay, so just being aware of the new position that your body's in. The sensations of the chair and the ground touching your body. And just let your body just sit there, so it's like the body knows how to sit down. It doesn't need any help from the mind to hold it up. Ideally, with kind of the mind and emotions are disengaged from the body, they're just letting themselves be supported by the body. So we're just going to just bring awareness to our situation at the moment. And just see what is the case. So what is the case right now? So it's the case that we're a human being, alive, and we exist in time and space. So first of all, just being aware of the dimension of time. So being aware of all the moments that you've experienced in the past. So when we're trying to do something in meditation, we often have to just give it time, so just be patient and just let it gradually dawn on you that you have a past, you've had a past, you exist in time. And it's also the case that you have a future, hopefully. So again, just waiting for yourself to arrive into an awareness of having a future, all the moments in time in the future. And if your mind is busy and impatient, just imagine putting it to one side for now while you just do this simple exercise, being aware of time. And it's also the case that right now you exist in a particular moment in time, which is the present moment. So again, just waiting to arrive into the present moment. Giving yourself enough time to arrive into the present moment. So as well as existing in time, it's also the case that you exist in space. So you're sitting on the Earth, which is a huge, great ball of matter flying through space. And above your head is the atmosphere of the Earth, which is about 10 miles thick. And then that thins out, and then you get vast empty space where it's absolutely huge distances out there. Every now and then you might have a star, a galaxy, or planet, but not very often at all. So again, just waiting for yourself to arrive into space, awareness of space, where you are in space. And the Earth is covered in oceans and ice caps, mountain ranges, forests, deserts, farmland, cities. And you're at a particular place on the Earth. So again, just allowing yourself to arrive into the actual place you are on the Earth. The actual city or the actual bit of land where you are, the room that you're in. So what else is the case? It's also the case that you have a body, which is a physical object in the physical world. You never don't have a body with you. And that body has a particular structure to it. So you've got bones that support your weight, the body's weight, muscles that move the body about, organs that keep the body alive in various ways. just tuning into the structure of your particular body, just seeing where the bones are, where the muscles are, where the organs are. And then aligning yourself, aligning your mind with the truth about your body. So can you allow the skeleton to take your weight down into the chair and the ground? So to do that, all you need to do is concentrate on not leaning over one side or another, forwards, backwards, side to side. But again, we're not holding our body up, we're just letting the body sit there. It knows how to sit down. It doesn't need any help from our mind to do that. So all the mind needs to do is just concentrate on the angle that the spine is making with the seat. So just check you're not leaning over it in any direction, because you just have to hold on at that side of the body if you are. And then if the bones of the body are taking the weight down into the ground, the chair, then the muscles of the body can feel confident that they'll be supported and they don't need to hold on. So the muscles of the body can soften and relax. And just reflecting on the fact that relaxation is a physical thing. It's just like unfurling a fist. So can you allow any tension in the body, in the muscles of the body, to just unfurl? So the muscles of the body become soft. So softening at the crown of the head, across the brow, the face, down the face, and the throat, the back of the neck, across the shoulders, down the arms, opening across the chest, down the sides of the body, in the belly, down the back, in the bowl of the pelvis, down the legs, big muscles of the thighs, and the calves and the shins, the feet. So just checking that you're still just watching the angle of your spine, so that you're not leaning over. You are allowing your body to take, your skeleton to take the weight. You've not fallen back into holding yourself up again. So as the mind and emotions don't need to be involved with holding the body up or being concerned with the body at all, they can just feel supported by the body. And in that knowledge that the body is there, as it were, underneath them, sort of supporting them, they can gain a sense of calm and reassurance. And then to increase the relaxation even further, just imagining a time when you felt maybe a bit upset, and then a friend just put their hand on your shoulder, and the touch of their hand just made you feel reassured and calm and relaxed, supported. Just pick a point anywhere in your body, maybe in your chest. And just imagine that the touch of all the points around that point are like that hand, bringing to that point a sense of reassurance, comfort, support. And just imagining that the same process is happening throughout the whole of your body. Every point in your body feels reassured by the touch of all the points around it. So in your own time, just bringing that meditation to a close. Okay, you all right?
You're asking me, or in
Yeah.
general?
Yeah, no, you.
Uh, I'm all right,
You,
thank you.
dude. Hey?
Yes, good, thank
All right. So you've been leading a retreat this last week. How are you feeling after that? Online, about 90
you.
people or something?
Yeah. Um, well, it's an interesting experience. I think normally I work, I'm very sort of somatic in the way I work. And because of my failing sight, visually, I can't really see the screen probably, so I can't see people. So, I mean, it went fine, and I quite enjoyed it, but it felt like quite hard work, because
Yeah,
there wasn't any kind of feedback in a way, somatic feedback. It's a bit like you just sitting in your front room doing something.
yeah.
I did find it strangely tiring, actually.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
we're very pleased to have done it.
yeah,
People seem to get
yeah,
something,
yeah,
so good thing to do.
yeah,
I wouldn't like to do it all the time.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I just ran into two friends from the Buddhist Centre like last week, and it's the first time
Mm.
I'd come in, had any contact with anybody physically, and it was just a complete relief, to just
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
see people in the flesh, and even if it's a short little conversation, it was great. Yeah,
Mm.
so, yeah.
I
So,
think you're probably a bit more technically au fait than me,
yeah,
You sort of come from a generation, don't you? I mean, I don't really like phones, to be honest,
yeah,
That sort of I mean, I use a phone, obviously, but, I've never, yeah. So while it's fantastic that we can keep in touch and we can do these things,
yeah,
it doesn't feel like my son, it seems completely natural to him. It doesn't never feel quite right to me.
yeah. So the point behind this interview is to kind of draw out a bit about your life and um, in a way it's a platform you can say anything you like as you normally do. So can we start with you, you kind of your early history? Like in growing up in Kenton and stuff. What was that like? And your
Well,
dad,
it's kind of,
you
yeah. You finished?
yeah,
Yeah. I don't know, it's so interesting, isn't it, when one gives one's history, because it's always so partial,
mm,
and you can sort of. I mean, I had quite a nice childhood, really. I wouldn't say it's particularly traumatic in some ways, though when I have given my life story in the past, because we do this, don't we, in order sometimes, give our life stories, people afterwards have sort of would have sounded really traumatic, but it wasn't my experience. We lived with my grandmother, who was in and out of mental hospital, eventually committed suicide. I suppose that was a bit traumatic, really. But I think my parents were reasonably happy. I was the youngest, I'm a twin, I was the youngest of the family. And we were my mother had, when me and my sister were born, I had another brother, a little bit less than a year older, and another sister a little bit less than 2 years older. So actually, when we were born, she had 4 children under 2. So quite, I don't really remember my parents much. I mean, I think we entertained ourselves largely. I quite enjoyed going to school. I think I was always in the bottom class. You know, it was a time of very streamed education, grammar schools, and but I don't even remember taking the 11 plus. You know. I had no teeth.
You had no teeth.
I had good teeth, but I was born with no teeth, or at least I was born with rotten teeth. They were all taken out. I think my sister got all the calcium, you know, in the womb. I was calcium deprived. So this is according to my sister, my twin sister, because we were in the same class during primary and stuff. And she insists that nobody could understand me when I spoke, you know. I don't remember that at all. So whether it's some, you know, deeply buried trauma or whether she's... But I do remember being taken to elocution lessons by my mother. And so there must have been something going on, because they certainly weren't trying to get me to talk posh, you know. I think the school recommended it. And we went one time. Funny, I remember it was in the same road that my other grandmother lived in. And this woman was very unpleasant, you know, she just harangued me. You know, I remember as we walked out, my mother saying, well, we're not going back there. So anyway, that was, see, this is what I mean. There's so many different little bits. I think, I've got this up here actually. I'll show you this. This was I had this grandfather. This is my other. Stand up. This is my other, not the grandparents. The grandmother lived with me, but the other grandparents that lived on Marlborough Hill, it was called, which is where the elocution woman lived. And they had this big rented house, like a big old Victorian rented house, and they rented it out mainly to Irish workers, you know, immigrant Irish workers. Because there was a house full of Irish workers, and that my grandfather had been born in India, and I was very, very fond of him. I mean, he died when I was 6 or something, so quite young. And subsequently, I found out he was a drunkard and a wife beater. But I mean, that was quite an interesting experience for me, really, because I was completely besotted. You know, I loved him very much. And then when I was older, I found out that, you know, in some ways he was not a very nice man. But anyway, what he had this on his fireplace. This is my first ever Buddhist thing, really.
Yeah.
And Tom, one of the Irish lodgers, used to put there's an incense burner, and he used to put his cigarette butts in it, put it on, and smoke would come out of his mouth. You know. So
that's your conditioning for smoking.
Exactly. I was going to say, you know, that's right.
It's the Buddha's fault.
A lifetime of struggling with myself, you know.
Yeah.
So that was it. But anyway, that was my first ever Buddhist thing. Which you know. Anyway, yeah. Ask me another question. That's enough about my childhood.
Yeah. Well, I know a key event was that your dad died when you in the early 20s, not? Was that?
Yeah, my dad died when I think I was 22. I don't know if it was a key event, really. I mean, you think it would be, wouldn't you? I mean, I was quite... Me and my father had a fairly good relationship. I was lucky actually because I'd gone off to, well, I was going to say university, but actually I went off to Polytechnic, so being away. And then I'd come back home, and the last 6 months of his life, I worked with him. He worked in a car factory, and he got me a job in his car factory. So we worked together. We weren't actually in the same shop, but we used to travel to work together, and sometimes played chess actually in the lunch hour. And I was very pleased to have had that 6 months with him, where I saw him as a, not as a father, but where I saw a completely different side of him. That I'd never heard him swear, you know. I mean, never swore. As soon as we got in, we used to get picked up by a couple of other guys. And as soon as we were in the car driving to work, you know, it was that, it was just a completely different side to him. And I was very pleased to sort of see him as a man in a way, you know, rather than as a father. Of course, the two aren't mutually exclusive, but you know what I mean? As someone who had a, you know, I think it's so interesting when you're a kid, isn't it? Your parents are just your parents. You know? And I think unless you manage to move beyond that idea of them just being your parents, you take property relationships with them when you do that. But anyway, I can't say again, you know, maybe it's a hidden trauma, but I can't say I felt that traumatized by my father's death, really.
Well, maybe you had a good relationship with him and you didn't need anything. You know, like often it's when people have difficulties with people and they die that they suffer, isn't it?
I think it's worse. Yeah, I think it's over 30. But one thing that did happen after he died, because I was living at home again after having lived away from home for 4 years. And I had a very strong sense that I had to get out of home. I had to leave home again. Very strong. I remember that. I mean, I stayed around for maybe a couple of months, and then I actually went and did voluntary work in a boys' home, you know. There's residential voluntary work in a boys' home. I just had this sense that I needed to get away, you know. I do remember that.
Yeah, and then you got involved in like psychiatric social work.
I ended up doing that. I did a lot of agency social work for 2 or 3, I don't know, a few years. And I ended up being sent to this therapeutic community called Tanglewood in Stanmore. It's actually quite near where I was born, actually. And I was just there as an agency worker, you know. But I was there quite a while as an agency worker, and then they offered me the job, you know, so I took the job. So I was in a slightly weird position, actually, because we were it was a residential place, but we also had field work responsibilities. And all the other people I worked with, they were all, I mean, we had a Freudian guy who had been a silent monk for 25 years. He was quite an interesting guy. So he'd been on some island as a monk for 25 years, and then realised he was going mad. You know? Went to the abbot and said, "Look, I think I'm going mad." He said, the abbot said, "Oh, well, I've been seeing a therapist for years." And anyway, was sent him to his therapist on the mainland. And anyway, he then trained as a Freudian therapist. Very funny, actually. You know, it was like a cartoon version of a Freudian therapist, because he was completely obsessed with sex, having been celibate for 25 years, you know. So everything was interpreted as sex. We had a Freudian therapist, we had a Kleinian therapist, we had a sort of guy that was big in behavioural therapy. Actually, there was one other guy that wasn't actually a trained therapist, but all the rest of the staff were trained therapists. I mean, it happened these days. So I had a base load of clients as well as, but I hadn't really had any training at all. And I did that for maybe 6 or 7 years, quite a long time, maybe a bit longer, I don't know. Yeah. And that was quite influential, really. I mean, but it changed very much. When I first worked there, it was mainly young people, and they were quite workable. And then the whole mental health scene, they shut down. You probably remember, I don't know, they shut down a lot of the old mental hospitals, and these people got put into the community. We were sort of halfway out, but whereas when I first went there, it was nearly all young people. We started getting people that had been in mental hospital for 30, 40 years, highly, being on very heavy antipsychotic drugs, all that stuff. Were pretty burnt out, to be honest. So I was doing that when I first came across Buddhism. I'd already been a meditator. I started meditating I was about 16. I did TM, and I did that fairly seriously for 2 or 3 years. I didn't mind the technique, it's a simple concentration technique, isn't it? Using a mantra, which was fine, But the organisation around it, I found fairly ludicrous. So I'd already meditated, but it was when I was a psychiatric social worker I first came across Buddhism.
Yeah.
In the flesh. I mean, I was quite an avid reader. I wasn't particularly interested in Buddhism. I was just interested in. I was quite interested in Sufi stuff and Taoist stuff at that time.
Yeah, I mean that like the Beatles sort of learnt TM, didn't they? And, about 68 or something with Maharishi, and so that would be about 71, wouldn't it? That if you were 16.
I suppose so.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a real melting pot. That. Yeah, go on.
Oh no, I just wanted to mention something. When I was thinking about it, what was very influential to me. I must say, I think one of the things that was very influential to me was coming across a book on Karl Marx in my secondary school library. I don't know what I was doing there, really. And I still remember it was Arnold Kettle that was the author. What Marx really said it was called. Of course, it wasn't really what Marx really said at all. It was what Mr. Kettle thought Marx did. But anyway. But reading that book, and I don't know how old I was there, maybe 40, had a profound effect on me, actually. Not because I became, I was a kind of left-wingy, I was involved in youth politics, blah, blah, blah. I never became a kind of doctrinaire Marxist. But what it did for me was to reveal that there was a different way of looking at the world. I can remember this quite distinctly. I suddenly thought, okay, this version I've been given of the world, which of course was Howard Wilson, White Hot Revolution. We're the same age basically, aren't we?
Yeah.
Same generation. I'm sure you remember that, but when we were kids, we all thought we'd be riding around in hover cars by now.
The Jetsons,
Nobody would have to work, would they? This sort of bonkers utopian sort of down there, I don't know, bollocks. And what Marx did, what getting a basic foundation in Marxism did was they were actually, that interpretation of the world is just one possible interpretation of history in the world, what's gone on, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, famously, he says, isn't it, the history of blood is the history of class struggle, you know. I was very struck by that, you know, and it shifted, you know, it opened me up in a certain sort of way. Not to take for granted what I thought the world was or what I was being told the world was. Of course, that still goes on. There was a kind of liberation, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though, as I say, I never really became a doctor and Marxist, but it was definitely a kind of liberation. I thought, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's easy to.
I was an odd kid. I wasn't. I mean, I was jolly. I was quite a happy kid, but I think I was a bit. It's hard to know, and you're normal to yourself, aren't you? I think I was regarded as a bit bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to forget the fact that, you know, because we're so used to the kind of left-wing legacy, you know, from the 60s onwards and all that. That, you know, I mean, I remember, like, I mean, I went to university in 73 at Manchester, and, you know, like most students, like 90% of the students were, like, left-wing or...
Yeah.
But it all just come about very, very quickly in a way, because you had the hippie era, and then suddenly things were starting to get a bit more socially aware and politicized and all that sort of stuff. But you know, it was pioneering. You know, it's like, I mean, I remember like there being 4 adventure playgrounds in Manchester, and an adventure playground in those days was like, they just dump all these railway sleepers on a bit of land, and then they just build something out of railway sleepers. And but in that adventure playground would be in front of like some Orwellian monolith, you know, kind of grey, you know, gloomy looking social housing thing, you know. And so it's like there's some sort of attempt to you know, think, hang on, what needs to happen here in terms of people and society and stuff, you know. So in the 70s, it was all a bit like that, wasn't it? And then it all got a bit snubbed out with Thatcher, you know, and shifted, you know. But yeah, but maybe that era defined us a lot a bit, you know. Yeah,
I think it was quite strange for kids growing up in the 50s after the Second World War, because if I think of my secondary school now, I think most of the, I mean, it was all male teachers. I went to single secondary model. We had one woman teacher at one point, but I think a lot of the teachers there were ex-servicemen, because after the war they had a thing in their scheme to get ex-servicemen into teaching. And I think a lot of them were traumatized, you know, traumatized by the war. And I think that's the case for a lot of our fathers and the men around, you know. There's a lot of trauma there, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, all my father died, he was only 52 when he died. And all his mates, he had a little sort of gang of mates from just after the war, or maybe, I don't know where he met them. They all had motorbikes, you know, just after the war. They couldn't afford cars, but they all had motorbikes. They're a little like motorbike gang, really, of their girls. You know. They all died in their 50s. Every one of them died in their 50s. You know. That the English working class, you know, get to 60, you were doing well, you know, in them days.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, if you worked in a factory, you know, what were you breathing in? Fucking loads of asbestos, all this solvents, you know, God knows what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, So it was a very different, well, a very different world in some ways, but of course in other ways.
Yeah. So it's worth remembering that, isn't it? That how different, things have been in the past, and that they might go back there again.
Well, I don't know if he could, yeah, maybe, well, it might be,
Well,
yeah.
not as quickly
I
as that,
can't
but
imagine we're going to have the phone where you have to press button A and then button B if you want to
yeah,
get your money back. Won't
yeah,
have them again, will it?
yeah,
But yeah, who knows? Of course, civilizations rise and fall, don't they?
yeah, they do.
If you look at history, civilization went from, the Greco-Roman culture into the so-called Dark Ages, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah,
The Romans buggered off, and then English history went fairly murky for some centuries, didn't it?
yeah, yeah. Okay, so shall we move on to Buddhism and your encounter with what was then the FWO,
Yeah,
Friends of the
okay,
Western
yeah.
Buddhist Order? Yeah,
So I'm working at this therapeutic community. I've got some leave that I've got to take, and I don't really fancy going on holiday as such. So I look at it, and I was living with this woman actually, who's now also in the order. She was just at the time, but she wasn't here just at that time. She was doing some sort of degree at Holloway. I think we were living over in Hornsey way, and she had a friend that was vaguely involved in. Well, he was involved with the Western Buddhist order as we were then. And I saw this advert for this retreat in Time Out. And when I showed it to her, she said, "Oh, I think I know someone that's involved." Anyway, so it was a bit of a confluence of things. And we thought, oh, well, we'll just go on retreat, And it was a 10-day retreat down in Seaford at the LBC. They still do those summer and winter 10-day retreats for beginners, don't they? So I don't know when that was. I don't know, 82 maybe.
yeah,
And I remember we were both keen cyclists. Well, I was a keen cyclist. We cycled down to Seaford from London. And I was a big dope smoker in them days, And we sat on the beach and finished our last bit of hash, thought I'll have a bit of a break from the hash, And then we went on this trip for 10 days. I mean, it was transformative, but I mean, looking back, I don't know how much it was a meditation or it was just the first time I wasn't stoned, but yeah, I don't know, It's hard to tell, I suddenly had this clarity of mind, but anyway, it had a big effect on me. I mean, the main thing that had an effect on me were the people running the retreat.
yeah. Who were there then?
Well, it was a particularly good lot actually. At the time, it was Damarati was leading it. Later, Parami was there. She'd just been ordained. Attila was there. Siddhi Ratna was there. Dhanavira was there. They're the ones that stand out for me. Oh, who was it? That was the actual first one I took it. I can't think of his name. The one who was he resigned, but he used to be a Fiesta director.
Oh,
Gay Fiesta director.
Jaya something.
Very urbane, wasn't he? He was quite sophisticated in his own way.
Right. Jaya Mati? No.
Jayamati, yeah, he was there. Anyway, it was a very Dana dinner, I think. I think she was there. There was a very particular little cohort of around the LBC at that time, which were quite they were quite sort of radical in a way, you know. Three Glaswegians in there, what, working class kind of Glaswegian. But anyway, I just remember thinking, I like these people. I didn't think that they were necessarily particularly spiritual or particularly. I just liked them as people, I thought, well, this is something I could be involved with, And particularly, like, I think with Sidney Ratner, he was very political. I was still quite political in them days. And I remember it was a time of solidarity was kicking off in Poland, wasn't it?
All right.
And anyway, I just remember thinking, like these people are all right. Paramananda was pretty bonkers really in them days. Quite operatic, But anyway, they were a particular bunch, and I could relate to those people. I think it was that attracted me. Yeah. I'd never really been involved in any organised since resigning from the Scouts after a failed attempt to democratise our Scout troop. I had not much to do with anything. I mean, I was involved with youth politics, and they were so fractious, I mean, it was ridiculous, I remember I was involved with a Harrow youth movement, then split into a sort of one with a kind of, Trotsky, what are they called? Version, just bonkers, really, they're just kids, but, anyway, so we went on that retreat, and within a year I'd given up my job, I'd sold my flat. I had my own flat in Hornsey, quite a nice flat. I sold my flat, I'd moved over to West London. I was sharing a room with Duncan, who of course became Gin Arnander in Notting Hill, which was, pretty. Notting Hill was still pretty rough, just up.
I'm just showing a picture of Jinander.
Right?
I'm just showing a picture of Jinander, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Handsome devil, wasn't it? Jinander. An officer and a gentleman.
Yeah.
Anyway, we shared a room for a while, which, God, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, it does make me think how. So I had quite a good job, I was quite well paid because I was on field work rates. I was quite well paid. I bought a house, a flat, I don't know, but I think times have changed. I think people are a lot more worried about security and future than we were in that day.
Yeah.
I just thought, if I want another flat, I'll buy another one. Of course, I've not, within a few years, became a total impossibility.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've never been too concerned with security in that sense. So within probably a year, I was moved in to a Buddhist community where. Did you ever come to Culver houses? Yeah, you did.
Well, that's my first centre, yeah.
Culver houses. But that was a community at that time, so we were living down in that basement room.
Yeah.
Where the murder had taken place.
Yeah.
Another story. Who was it? Lemmy. Lemmy's road. Who was Lemmy?
Motorhead. Yeah.
Motorhead Road had been killed in that room.
Yeah. That became like the massage room, didn't it, downstairs?
It did, yeah. I mean, I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was a community anyway, and there was a lot of us living there. There were 6 or 7 people there at one time. Well, maybe one. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Shanty, Crabbe was there. remember very distinctly when I moved in to the Notting Hill Carnival. I moved in that weekend and they'd all gone off the street. And I moved in and I had those steps, didn't I? And sitting on the steps and smoking a spliff in the Notting Hill Carnival. That was my first experience of living there.
Yeah.
It wasn't such a bad start, I suppose. But anyway, so that was it really. And then I'd worked in a friend's gardening as it was gardening collective.
So it was like they'd have like these businesses where they'd to raise money for run centres and things, or there's a bunch of guys that all just get together and run a gardening business. So yeah.
I mean, at that time, West London had that business. I think they already had Friends Food in Notting Hill.
Yeah.
At that time,
Yeah.
They didn't really have a centre. They rented a room on Baker Street. Actually, we had a centre on Baker Street, but it was just rented.
Yeah.
Top floor of the place on Baker Street.
Yeah.
Where we were doing classes and stuff,
Yeah. So
it was them days. It was very DIY, wasn't it? In them days, that sort of era.
Yeah. So can you say a bit about people like Bodhi Rucci and Sila Prabha and some of the people around at the time?
I think Bodhi Rucci was already around at that. Yeah, he was. I think he was already there. He wasn't ordained at that point. And Sila Prabha was there. Yeah. Sila Prabha was there. She was in a relationship with Ratnavira, and that's before he was already ordained, but she wasn't ordained. But they were in a relationship. When we did get that sense, I mean, this is moving on a bit after a few years down the line, but she sort of ran the centre really. She was sort of power behind the throne, as it were.
Yeah.
She was very cool. Well, you know what I mean. She was a fantastic woman. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's had a big. So we were very close friends actually. Me and Peter Father.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, when I was in New Zealand, I went to stay with her for a few days.
Yeah.
And she resigned from the order the day after I left.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessary. Well, it was sort of connected. I mean, she'd been pretty much out of contact for quite a long time. But I think seeing me made them, with her and Sayakara, who she lived with, they both resigned after my visit, but it was only tangentially connected, I think.
Yeah.
It was very nice to see her,
Yeah.
Confident woman.
Yeah. Well, I had a strong connection with her, and it's really sad to sort of see her go and all that sort of thing. Yeah, but
It is sad.
Yeah. So like West London Centre, I mean, there were lots of. Well, it started in a way by Kamla Sheila, wasn't it? And
in a way, I mean, he worked the whole West London thing, from Archway. Yeah, I think he came west from there.
Yeah.
And there's another one who died, wasn't there, that had a...
Van Gieser, was it?
Well, Van Gieser might have been there, but there was another one. Banksy had a very brief spell where he gave people sort of names from...
From Blake. From Blake, yeah.
Yeah. He was one of them, so he didn't have a Sanskrit or Pali name. He had a... What was his name? I can't remember his name, but he was involved. There was a few of them, but certainly Carmen Cedar was. But by the time I got there, Carmen Cedar wasn't around. I don't know where he was at that point. They didn't have Vajraloka by then, did they? So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was in the original centre was in near Fulham Road or something. Fulham. Oh, what's it called? North End Road.
But, yeah, I think they had one. But I mean, they were quite. Yeah, they had various places. I think quite short.
Yeah. But Kamalashila sort of went off to set up Vajraloka and ended up writing the first non-Sangharakshita book, didn't he? He was the first order member to write a book. Was he? On Buddhist meditation,
He's probably the first one to write a book on meditation. Yeah. I think Jai did. I think Nagabodhi did.
Yeah. But like at West London, there were lots of. There was you and there's Jinandra, who's very literary, and there was lots of artists and people, kind of creative people, wasn't there? So it's very different from other parts of the movement, like say Padmaloka or Croydon, So
Well, they were quite artsy, weren't they, in a different way?
Yeah.
They had an art centre, didn't they?
Well, they did, yeah. But in terms of like the atmosphere and how organised everything was, it's more anarchic, wasn't it, West London, really?
It was quite anarchic. We had a lot of musicians, didn't we?
Yeah.
A lot of musicians around there, and it was a bit more anarchic. Yeah, it certainly wasn't.
Yeah.
Where Croydon was quite so gung ho and organised.
That was it. Yeah.
We were by comparison a bit anarchic.
Yeah.
And all over the place in a nice way, I think.
Yeah. I remember those centre team meetings.
Eh?
It just took us forever to do anything. It was nice though, yeah.
Well, I remember when I became chairman, we did do everything. I remember I designed the programme and, just cut it out of a scap, little paste and,
Well, I've got one here, look. Here's a poster.
Oh, yeah, we made all that and we used to go out fly posting picking up the posters, we teach the class. I mean, we just did everything. It's just how it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was a lot more. I mean, I find it quite hard. I'm still involved in West London, but times have changed. There's all this health and safety and all this. Guys are a bit bonkers, personally, but just because I've come from something quite different,
Yeah.
That whole sort of punk DIY, stuff. Just did it, and it was all a bit of a mess and it was a bit chaotic.
Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is I've just showed a poster I did that was with coloured pencils. And I don't know again. Yeah. All right. So you tell us a bit about the story of like going to America, how that came about. See.
Well, I don't know. I can't even remember when I went to America. When did Clinton become?
93, I think it was.
Yeah. So my time in America more or less coincided with Clinton's time as president. I was there for 8 years to the day, funny enough. Sorry. Got a frog in my throat. Yeah, so maybe 92. I think, was Clinton already president when I went? Yeah, I think so. Well, it was one of those things, I didn't really have any particular intention to go to America. I had a plan to go to Prague with.
Oh yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, me and Jananda were planning to go and try and set up something in Prague. I wanted to go and live abroad somewhere. I'd always lived in London. I thought I just want to go and live in a different culture. Experience living in a different country. So we were going to go to Prague. He got what was her name? I can't remember her name. French girl pregnant.
Monique.
money, as in had hands on. So he had a young child, so he wasn't going anywhere. I certainly wasn't going to Prague on my own. I mean, it probably would have been a disaster me going to Prague, because I don't have any real facility for learning foreign languages, you know. I don't think it's an easy language. Anyway, then by that, you know, I was very friendly with Paramananda. I got ordained, but he quite fancied going away, and funny enough, who was it? Banton. There was another two guys that were thinking of going to San Francisco.
Paramananda, I'm just showing a picture of him. Yeah.
No, I got a picture. You know, two other guys that were going to go to one of the Yashas. One that was chairman of Brighton. Yasha Deva.
Yashideva, yeah.
And one that used to be Banton's companion that resigned, the New Zealand guy. Anyway, they were going to go to San Francisco, and then Parama. Anyway, one of them got their girlfriend pregnant, so that fell through. So anyway, we went out to San Francisco for a visit, and then the year after we moved out there, you know, because they wanted someone. There was already a group for that, because we'd had Centre in Boston and moved for quite a while, and Vajradhar used to, I think, and who was the other one that was out in America for years? Manju Rajra.
Yeah.
They used to visit the Bay Area and do once a year. There was a little group that had come across Sangha to teaching and were interested in the Friends and that approach. And, so they wanted a couple of order members out there, so we went out. Yeah. So that was and
yeah. So I mean, you went out there, and San Francisco had been a famous. Well, it's famous in a way for like the beats, wasn't it, and all that Jack Kerouac.
Yeah.
But also for San Francisco Zen Center.
Yeah.
And Shunryu Suzuki. So Shunryu Suzuki was a Japanese priest who went to America, and very kind of down to earth character who thought, how can we bring this something real about here in terms of a Zen center, you know. So I'll just show a picture of him. Do you want to say a bit about him, because you've got a really strong connection with him, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he was dead. He was long dead before I went out there.
Yeah.
But I had a lot to do with the Zen Center when I lived in San Francisco. But I was already a huge fan of his mate. I mean, there's been a couple of books by him that come out after his death, but really he's known for the one book, isn't he? Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind.
Yeah.
Which had a huge influence on me as a meditator and as a teacher. I mean, I think of him as my main meditation teacher, really, although I never actually met him in the flesh, you know. And I think it's because he had what I characterize as a very poetic approach to meditation, very poetic approach, and I sort of see him as my teacher, really, you know.
Yeah.
From a meditation point of view, really.
Yeah.
They had a huge influence, and so it was quite interesting. I did end up living in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And actually, for a while, I used to go to the building on Gary Street. Anyway, there was this big old building, which was the original in Japantown, because because Suzuki came out, he was asked to go out there because there was a big Japanese community out there.
Yeah.
So he went there as a sort of priest, and he was sort of expected to do the wedding and da 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 da. But what his interest really was meditation, And when he started doing the meditation stuff, of course, it was mainly hippie Westerners. It wasn't the Japanese community that were interested,
Mm.
So I don't know if he actually fell out of the Japanese community, but he moved from being a kind of there as a priest for that particular ethnic community to becoming, well, in a way, I mean, he's probably best known Zen teacher in America, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certainly one of them, and had a huge influence. Anyway, and I was quite into the board game Go. And
I remember you playing it in West London, yeah.
Yeah, there was this Go club in San Francisco, which was in the original building where he taught meditation when he first came to America, which was this old. It was sort of falling down. Actually, I don't know what ever happened to it, whether it got knocked down or renovated. And then they had, when I was there on Page Street, they had the Zen section on Page Street. And so I used to have quite a bit to do with Page Street. And I also was a volunteer at the Zen Hospice, which was just directly opposite the Zen Center on Page. And I probably volunteered there for 5 or 6 years. I mean, that was a big thing. My time in San Francisco, it was at the height of the AIDS epidemic, and it was basically, the hospice was basically an AIDS hospice. So that was a big thing, having a lot of contact with people, young guys, most of the guys that died there at that time were in their 30s.
Yeah.
Kind of AIDS.
Yeah.
Before the anti-retroviral drugs came in,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that, anyway, I had quite, funny enough, I was listening to the radio yesterday, and they had the current, sounded like a really interesting guy actually, but I had the current director of the Zen Hospice. It might have been Ted Radio, I can't remember what the program was, but anyway, they had the current director of the Zen Hospice on the radio yesterday. That was quite a funny little coincidence thing.
Yeah.
Reminded me of it, reminded me of those days.
Yeah. I mean, I remember you being into Stephen Levine and his Healing into Life and Death, and like.
Yeah, I'm quite into that whole death thing. I've always, been quite into that whole. I've always had a kind of. I mean, like I was into. Yeah. I quite like the thing. It was alright.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? I mean, I was into a lot of before I became a Buddhist. Or I don't even like that became a Buddhist anyway. Sorry. I don't know what I was going to say there actually.
Stephen Levine, before you became a Buddhist.
Well, I was saying I was very into sort of Wilhelm Reich, and people like that actually, body-based. When I was working as a psychiatrist social worker, I got very into body-based sort of approaches to mental health. That was a big influence on me as well. That whole kind of Wilhelm Reich kind of this whole idea of body armoring and
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and sort of working through the body rather than all the talking.
yeah, yeah,
I like talking, but
yeah, 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 yeah,
so that had a big influence.
yeah, yeah. So, so when you're in, I mean, I remember, I mean, you led a lot of meditation courses and stuff in West London,
Yeah,
and I remember you sort of saying that you wrote your first book in 6 weeks or something, and it was just you writing what you did on a meditation course,
so
Um,
basically, that first book that changed my mind. I mean, that was another. I didn't have any intention of writing the book. But that was another one of those happenstance. Just
yeah,
Windhorse had asked Damarati, who, if you remember, listeners, was the person who led the first ever retreat I went on. The Glaswegian guy, clever guy. They'd asked Damarati to write an introduction to meditation. And after kind of, I don't know how many years, 3 or 4 years of him not doing it, and they were nagging him to do it because they really wanted an introductory book on meditation. It had, as you mentioned, it had Karma Shilas, but that's quite a technical book,
yeah,
isn't it? They wanted something a bit more, straightforward and aimed at beginners more. So after 4 years of him not doing it, or however long it was, he suggested, well, maybe they should ask me. So they asked me, and I wrote it very quickly because I would be down there because I lived we were in Bartlett Street, but I don't, in the Mission and stuff. I would live in the Bubbly Village Centre. So I'd do a class and then I'd basically just go upstairs and pretty much write down what I'd done in the class.
yeah.
So it was the initial draft written very quickly.
So change your mind has become like in a way the biggest meditation seller in our movement, hasn't it? It's good.
I think so, yeah. It's sold consistently well for a long time, and popular book, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know at a certain
I
point.
haven't become fabulously rich, so
No, yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah. I remember a while ago. I think that it was up to about 70,000 copies or something sold, something like that.
No, I mean that's not bad for a book like that.
No, yeah, yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
damn good, but that you've got to sell a lot of books. I mean, how long ago was that written? It must be
Well, it was
25
early
years ago.
90s, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago, so it's sold steadily. Yeah. So over the years, I've done all right out of it, but
yeah,
about £1,000 a year,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
you got to sell the book.
yeah. So you went to America with Paramananda Bodhi, and then you went to America with Paramananda Bodhi, and then after about 8 years. So what happened at the end there? Because his dad died, didn't he, or something?
His dad died. He moved back to England. So last year I was there. He wasn't there. He'd come back to England. And to be honest, it wouldn't mind me saying he didn't age that probably for a year or so before that as well.
He what? Sorry, say that again.
He was fairly disengaged
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was travelling back to England to his dad.
yeah,
So, but yeah, most of the time. I mean, Pam Foley's, is an interesting dude. He's a painter, isn't he?
yeah,
And he kept that practice up all the time. Painters are painters. They're bloody single-minded.
yeah,
And he did a lot of Buddhist stuff as well. But
yeah.
I mean,
So he had that weird thing happen, didn't he, around 9/11? That led to him doing those newspaper paintings and stuff.
Yeah, is that where they started? Certainly did a
Yeah,
lot of.
that,
Yeah,
there's some sort of story around seeing an image of the twin towers being, the plane crashing into them, and I don't
he
know, I can't
certainly
remember.
did quite. He did a lot of paintings of 9/11 and Bin Laden and all sorts.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
don't know if they were the first newspapers.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah, he used to basically paint newspapers and then he carried on doing it.
yeah, yeah,
Nearly all of it.
yeah. I've got some
But,
here. I could just show people that some of his paintings he did.
yeah,
Hang on a minute.
yeah.
So yeah, so here, what he started to do was images of people, like obituaries. So he would pick somebody who died, and he'd just do uh, a painted copy of what would be in, say, the Guardian, obituary. There'd be a picture of them and the name, and he just kind of just recreate it. But it's really interesting because he just ended up doing lots and lots of very different people, and made you think like, oh, they've died. Oh, yeah, they've died. And there's Amy Winehouse and Prince, and he started doing artists, didn't he? At a certain point, Robert Rauschenberg and stuff, Picasso, and whatever. But yeah, no, it feels a bit almost like it's some sort of response to his dad's death. Trying to kind of come to terms with it and things.
Well, I mean, interesting enough, but I'm sure I hope you would mind me saying, because his mum was an artist. She died when he was a kid.
Right. Yeah.
So who knows what strange current, gone
Yeah.
into what he's ended up doing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
the same with all of us, isn't it, really? It's only, retrospectively you start seeing how your conditioning is, or maybe karma would say, but I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
shapes us, doesn't it?
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm starting to realise how much I've been shaped by my background, the trauma in my family and stuff. With
Yeah,
my dad's mum leaving him when he was 1, and then his dad committed suicide when we were 4. So
yeah.
it's really strong, isn't it? How conditioning affects you and stuff. Yeah.
It is, yeah, but it's not necessarily straightforward, is it?
Yeah.
So come at you from the side in a way,
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, without getting too metaphysical, of course, we're not actually discrete entities, are we? So we're not psychically discrete, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We're in the same current, aren't we? We're in a kind of current of our families and our race and our country, our history.
Yeah.
We're in a current, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
We like to think of ourselves as sort of independent and whatever, but of course we're all in the same river in a way, aren't we?
Yeah. 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 So you came back to England, and after a while you had a son.
I did, yeah.
And
Late in life, I had a son who's now 17.
yeah. Yeah.
Son, it's a bit cold. It's chilly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Weather's turned. Yeah. I had a son, Harvey. Yeah.
Yeah, and you ended up back at West London again, living above the centre and stuff, and you started doing you got involved with Attila and Dana Vera doing the Crucible thing.
Yeah.
So, and then out of that came you doing a PhD.
Yeah. Well, actually, how that arose really is that thing of Gupta.
Yeah.
Bronwyn, who was a university professor, or I don't know, anyway, she was a university lecturer. And Dana Vera, another guy, your listeners might remember, or they won't, but was the first retreat.
On the first retreat, he was there. Yeah.
Another Glaswegian. I mean, you want to try and get him on, mate. Complete. He's the nearest we've got to a mad prophet, isn't he? You know, in the order, I think. He's sort of can't quite work out if he's a genius or just bonkers, you know, a bit of both, you know. Anyway, very, very interesting guy. But him and Singer Gupta were doing a project in Cambridge, trying to get mindfulness into schools. This was before all the mindfulness stuff was blown up out of recognition, you know, become so trendy.
Yeah, early 2000s, isn't it, this? Yeah.
Yeah, so they were trying to get mindfulness into schools, and then she got an offer of supervising PhD. They wanted her to supervise. I think there was 4 of us that the college was going to give bursaries to. So I got a phone call from Dana Vera, why didn't you apply for this PhD? And the original idea was that I was going to do research based on the work that they were doing, trying to get mindfulness in schools in Cambridge. That was the original kind of idea. Mm-hmm. But shortly after I started that project, kind of folded. So then we, along with the 3 of us, we set up this Crucible research, and, which I often said was one of those things that was, the whole was less than its part. Because, we all had quite,
like a committee sort of thing.
Yeah, I just think it never quite gelled.
Yeah, no.
And yet there was a lot of talent there, a lot of very interesting. They're all individually very interesting people, and it did some fairly interesting things.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was set up, which was going to sort of provide the what's the word? Is sort of not field work, but data for my first. That didn't really work either. So in the end, I just did a PhD on.
Yeah.
But anyway, I eventually got. I always say think carefully before you take on a PhD. I tried to give it up a couple of times. It wasn't really me. I'm not.
Yeah.
I think I'm a competent writer, but I'm not an academic writer.
Yeah. But it did introduce you, didn't it, to various I mean, what you ended up doing, it was called ontological inquiry, your PhD.
That's right, yeah.
And
what does that mean? you were up to a bit of that this morning in your meditation, weren't you?
Was that?
But weren't you trying to get you were trying to engage us in ontological inquiry, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so what you ended up doing was like, in your PhD was you had to just look at all the currents in like Western thought, didn't you? Of the 20th century and, phenomenology and Foucault and Derrida, like to be able to kind of put the whole thing in both a Buddhist and a Western context, or contextualize what you were doing. And I remember you introducing me to a book called Embodied Mind.
Oh yeah, Varela. Wow,
so Francisco Varela and Evan Thompson, Eleanor Roche.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
this book was like really important in Buddhism and science
yeah.
debate. You
He
know, it
was
came out in '92.
he was part of the dialogue with the Dalai Lama, wasn't he?
Yeah,
With this dialogue that was going on with the Dalai Lama.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it had and I think out of looking at this, did you get interested in Heidegger from there?
I
Oh,
can't really remember the order, but at some point. I mean, I wasn't completely unfamiliar with some of these people before the PhD. You know, I've always been quite widely read. You know, I mean, I've always read a lot when I could.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, most novels really, but I always would dip into. I mean, I did, you know, I had a degree in sociology. So, oh, I would dip into some of the Western thing, but yeah, I don't know. It's that, yeah, I got very interested in Heidegger. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not quite. I can't quite remember how that happened.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But of course, in a way, it's a precursor to that whole phenomenological tradition, you know, as well as the existentialist tradition. You know.
yeah,
And the controversial figure, of course, because of his flirtation after.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I got very interested in Heidegger.
Yeah, yeah. So so a lot of your um, teaching at the moment is often about embodiment, isn't it? And it's also James Hillman's in there quite strongly.
He's
Uh,
had a Hillman probably out of anybody. Suzuki that we were talking about
yeah,
earlier, and Hillman are probably the two biggest influences.
yeah,
Well, I don't know, in the poetry in general, you know,
yeah, yeah,
mainly modern poetry,
yeah, yeah,
novels. You know, to be honest, I've never been a great reader of Buddhist material.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I've read the odd thing, you know.
yeah,
In the order we do a certain amount of study, don't we?
yeah,
I studied a bit of some traditional Buddhist texts and all that, but I've never been a huge, you know. I mean, I am very interested in that Western tradition, you know, because I'm a Westerner, you know.
yeah,
I'm interested in that Western tradition. And,
yeah.
what was the question?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying how influential Hillman's been on you. You know, so
Hillman.
Hillman, and also yeah. So you in Change Your Mind, which came out in something like '95 or something. You know, there's lots of poetry in there, isn't there? Miroslav
Yeah.
Holub and people like that. And then you've carried on where poetry is a big part of your meditation teaching. So you're often reciting on a retreat. You'd be reciting a poem at the beginning of a meditation and at the end from memory. And I remember you practicing this, you know, years ago. So you don't have to read it; you just recite it from memory. And sometimes it's a bit imperfect and that, you know. But the whole thing of kind of poetic response to life. I mean, I was watching a clip on YouTube of Hillman last night, you know, and what he was kind of like railing against was the lack of imagination, really, and you know, where people are just taught. Education is a lot about having being tested for something, and what you're dissuaded from is like having a not knowing attitude. I don't know, kind of being honest really about the fact that we don't know. And so a lot of what's in poetry is like elusive.
Imagination.
Yeah. So poetry is like a kind of it doesn't present you with answers, does it? It just kind of it hints at something, it points towards something, but it in a way it asks more questions than gives answers, isn't it? So is that the kind of is that what you're getting at with the whole thing about embodiment and
Well, I don't know how esoteric to be, but I suppose I mean, I'm a bit dubious of this word embodiment now because it's become so kind of popular, you know. Well, not unfortunately, it's good that there's more people interested in a kind of embodied approach to meditation, but I think it can be quite mechanical still.
yeah, yeah,
For me, I don't. It might sound a bit pretentious, I don't know, or a bit esoteric, but I would say, I think of the body as giving access to the psyche, you know.
yeah,
You know, so that's why
yeah,
I'm not really that interested in the body. You know, I'm interested in the body because I think our psyches, we have an embodied psyche.
yeah, yeah,
So if we're numb to our bodies, we're also numb to the greater part of our psyche. You know, we're just living on that ego frothy bit on the top, aren't we?
yeah,
And if we want access to our psyche,
yeah,
we've got to pay attention to the body in a loving, tender way, you know.
yeah,
You know, so that's why I'm interested in the body, really.
yeah.
But I think that's a bit different. You know, I've got my reservations about some of the mindfulness stuff, which might stress body, but tends to stress body in a sort of pseudo-medical way. You get it even in the language, don't you? I mean, I found myself, you know, I use this term for sure, but at some point I found myself kind of getting to react to this idea of a body scan, you know.
Yeah.
It's sort of medical, quasi-medical term, isn't it? You know? And it sort of implies this separation, you know. What's doing the scanning, you know? Well, you got a little doctor inside you or something doing the scan. I mean, you know, it is to some extent perpetuating a very dualism that an embodied approach is trying to get beyond, you know.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Wilson in his book Mindful America talks about this. He talks about the medicalization of mindfulness, you know. And
Well, two things go on, don't they? The medicalization, because scientific paradigm is the dominant paradigm now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we try and fit it's more or less a quasi-religious paradigm now.
Yeah.
So we try and fit in with the conventional paradigm of our culture. And the other thing that, of course, happens is the commodification of it all. So we make mindfulness into a product which is sellable, into a commodity, you know. I think this is very different. It strikes me as a very different spirit. Of course, we're just guessing, but when you imagine yourself back at the time of the Buddha, with these kind of vagabonds, you know, living in poverty in forests, doing that practice, you know, begging for food. It's like a big, you know, we glorify it, and of course, Buddhist art, you know, but of course, it's a lot more like trance than anything else, you know.
Yeah.
The modern equivalent of like New Age travelers, like, do you know what I mean? And living very basic, simple life, practicing, you know. And everything would have been, you know, now, of course, you got mindfulness apps, and you know, you can spend, you know, loads of money doing a meditation course with no teacher, you know. Teachers have become celebrities, and then, you know, you can't have celebrities, teachers. You know, the whole thing commodity, because again, that's our culture, and that's the genius of capitalism. It can commodify anything.
Yeah.
That's what it does, you know. But I'm quite into that whole
Yeah.
I mean, going back to Hillman, of course, it must be noted, it should be noted that Hillman's quite anti-meditation. He's quite rude about it. He doesn't talk about it that much. But he's often quite rude about it when he did talk about it.
Yeah.
Which I quite like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, reading about him last night, he had that book. One of his breakthrough books was revisioning psychology, wasn't it? 1975.
I think that was his PhD, wasn't it?
Yeah, something
Anyway,
like that. Yeah. And I think I think what I got from that was that he's trying to. It's almost like he's trying to wake something up that's fallen asleep or something. It's like psychology is you can solve all your problems through psychology, and people just get into endless therapy and all this sort of stuff, and somehow you can tell that there's something missing. He's saying about there's a lack of soul in it. It's not. You can it's, in a way it's similar to this medicalisation of everything.
What it is the commodification of the psyche.
Yeah.
Another commodification, as you say, man, go to therapist. I mean, the thing that Hillman says, which is so telling, is that he says a lot of modern psychology has nothing to do with psyche.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Hillman at his best, when if you take something like alchemical psychology, the essay on blue, and that the colour, it's the whole essay on the colour blue. Anyway, at its best, what I think Hillman's doing is showing you psyche. So it's a bit like they say about good writing, done a good novel, show, don't tell.
Yeah.
He's actually showing you the nature of touch in quite a visceral way, because what's so wonderful about Hillman is you're reading along, you think you understand what he's saying, and it just suddenly flips it over, boom. And it just suddenly presents a completely different view, completely different perspective.
Yeah.
So he's poetic in that sense, that he's never got one perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, his whole thing, that's the way he loves the Greek gods, doesn't he? The archetypes so much, because every god's got their own perspective.
Yeah.
Their own way of understanding the world. And, and what he's saying is that is what the psyche's like. You are a constellation of different psychic energies.
Yeah.
So I get pissed off with Buddhism when it keeps banging on about integration sometimes.
Yeah.
I think you can get yourself talk, the different bits of yourself talking to each other, but you don't want to kind of put them in some fucking food process to make some homogenous gunk, do you? Do you know what I mean? You still want to have, we've got different aspects.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm going on a rant now. Going. But, this is why we have so much trouble with Buddhist, why so many, we get so disillusioned with our Buddhist teachers or whoever it is, because you start to expect people to be uniform.
Yeah.
Whether it's Martin Luther King Jr., it was a womanizer, he was a pretty bad woman. Well, good womanizer, do you know what I mean? There's always an imperfection there. I do worry about it. I've got to be very careful what I say here, but our own teacher, of course, had his peccadillos, didn't he? Sexual and Trump and all. And I think Hillman's saying, well, this is what people are like.
Yeah.
Hillman and Shakespeare. I mean, you used to be a big Shakespeare fan, didn't you?
Yeah.
I know you probably still are, didn't you? I remember you worked away.
Well, I consciously tried to read all the plays, yeah.
And of course, the glory of Shakespeare again is that he shows people as complex, contradictory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't he? You know what I mean? They're never wholly good or wholly bad. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and you know, the danger of I mean, this is where Hillman would criticize Phillips. It's the spiritualization. You know, we know what happens when people suppress. Look at what's happened to the Catholic. Well, just one example, isn't it? The Catholic Church. You know, terrible mess that they've got into through, you know, thinking that you can suppress your sexuality or
Yeah.
you know, and it was, you know, horrendous, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, you know,
you've got to be careful.
Yeah. When I did my hang on a minute. When I did my session on views, you know, earlier on this month, I played a recording of Sagramati talking about views, you know, and what he said. One of the things he said was that he says a view, it's like the whole of the person manifest as a view, you know. So it's not just we have an intellectual. It's not just our views, what we think. You know, you know, we think we're a liberal or whatever. Our view is like what everything that happens, everything in our emotions at a deeper level, our unconscious, is all manifesting as a view. So we might think we're a liberal, but actually we don't do very much in terms of the help of the people or whatever. So it's like you know. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like the view isn't.
No, I do.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, breaking up there a bit for me. But yeah, I got the drift, and I sort of agree with him, although I think the choice of the word view is quite misleading in a way. Because most people, when they hear the word view, think of it as an intellectual thing. Where he's saying it's a lot deeper than that, isn't it? It manifests in your behaviour.
Yeah.
Whether you're mean or generous, or all of that.
Yeah.
It's just a terminological terminology that I find it a bit frustrating when we refer to that as a view.
Yeah.
It's more like a mood or a flavor or character, isn't it? Traditionally, we'd call that our character, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
It's a sort of a dream that we're in a way, isn't it? So that's why that's so hard to.
Well, yeah. I suppose it's like what we imagine but in the fullest sense, deepest sense, you know, of like that's where, you know, things are kind of coming from our conditioning about, you know, how you know our the social world we're in and all that is all contributing towards what we actually do, you know, what we actually do in life, or what we actually. I suppose a view is like a map, isn't it? It's our map, and then we act from that map, you know. So
you know, as Kant taught us, you know, it's not just our social conditioning, is it? It's our perceptual conditioning, you know.
Yeah.
On some very basic level, we're only equipped to perceive the world in a particular way. You know, again, you know, going back to your ontological meditation that you did, because we perceive, we're biologically constructed to experience time and space in a particular way. You know, a fly experiences time quite differently from you as far as yourself. Do you know what I mean? Or obviously an insect experiences space quite differently from a human being. You know, it's like the Wittgenstein if a lion could talk, isn't it?
Yeah. So the thing, you know, so the central teaching of the Buddha is like that is all things depend on conditions, you know, law of conditionality. So so how we work on our what I would say views, but we have to work on our conditions, don't we? So we put ourselves into situations where we get transformed in the sort of right way. So when you go on retreat and you hear kind of poetry and stuff, hear you sort of reciting poetry, it's like it's trying to create the conditions whereby some transformation happens, or you read a bit of Hillman and it's trying to transform things at the depths than at at the surface or whatever. I don't know.
Hmm.
No.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm sitting there thinking, after teaching meditation for I don't know how long it is now. Must be going on for 40 years now, or 30, well over 30.
Over 35, isn't it?
Yeah. Do I know what I'm doing? No, I don't know what I'm doing really, Mark, to be honest with you. And, increasingly I'm feeling, well, what is it we're trying to do with that? I know we can come up with these nice theoretical models.
Yeah, sure.
It's about conditioning, it's about view, it's about it. And of course, all of them have got some validity, but in the end, what is it we're trying to do? And I think, that the Zen people have that thing, don't they? Small doubt, small enlightenment, big doubt, big enlightenment. Not how we believe in enlightenment, to be honest. Well, I don't even know what that means. I don't believe in enlightenment as something that you or me can individually possess. It seems ridiculous to me. Obviously, it's mainly about opening up the self, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that yourself is to an extent just a manifestation of reality, isn't it? You are just a manifestation of reality. But anyway, what does any of that mean? And what does it mean? I suppose in a way it comes down to, well, what does it mean to live a good life? It's like the old Socratic or Platonic questions, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's a good life? What's a meaningful life? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you?
Well, I mean, all those questions. All those questions are like not abstract, are they? They're completely personal, aren't they?
Completely personal.
It's like we've got you pays your money and you takes your choice. So you might go. So I think sense I get of what you're saying about meditation is like you just keep going with it, and it's an exploration, and you're just intuiting which is the way to go next, or something like that. But whichever way you go, it will have a consequence for yourself and others, won't it? So there's something
and I'm increasingly skeptical about certainty.
Yeah.
When I meet someone now who presents, of course, if you're teaching beginners to meditate, you want something quite simple. Well, I hope this doesn't sound patronising, but you want something quite clear and simple. But I think the truth is, if you have been meditating for 30 years or whatever on a fairly consistent basis, you enter more and more into a kind of mystery.
Yeah.
There's a certain clarity there, but it's a clarity based on accepting that you don't know, and you will never know. I mean, I always laugh with this Stephen Hawking sort of thing, a theory of everything. What does that even mean? You know what I mean? It's like having a map that shows you everything. well, it would be everything, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? The only way you could have a map that showed every aspect of reality would be to have another reality, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
As complete. And, you know, when you come back to, you know, the pre-Socratic philosophers in Greece, their main thing, they spoke out of a sense of awe. Like that's good sometimes, you know? Awe. They were in awe of the universe. Like when you look at a night sky, just in awe of it. And that was, in a way, the emotional, underlying emotional foundation of what they would, their work as philosophers. It was always coming out of awe, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, and they had this idea, didn't they? What it is that, you know, I can't remember which one it was. It talks about the soul, which is just in Greek, because soul is just another word for psyche, isn't it? So the psyche is fathomless. You can never get to the end of it. And of course, Buddhism's got the same idea, isn't it? In Pure Land Buddhism, you know, in particular, they emphasize it. You're never going to get to the end of your conditioning, you know?
Yeah.
And I like that. I don't like this modern idea, this modern pop psychology idea that you can sort of sort out, there's a solution to your psyche, or there's a solution to life, you know, because that's saying, well, life is a problem. Life isn't a problem, it's just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, saying it's a problem and needs a solution, it's like death. I mean, death isn't a problem. It'd be a problem if we didn't die, but, you know, death is just death. It's just part, you know, no more or less part of life than birth. You know?
Yeah.
But we're in this culture, and again, it's this commodification thing, really, and this severance from nature, isn't it? Severance from the what I would tend to call the divine feminine. I don't mean that in a gender sense, but the basic cyclical nature of things, you know.
Mm.
And,
yeah. I mean, I was struck by. I was just looking in Mindful magazine, you know, which is like this. Yeah, it's one of the main ones for the mindfulness movement, and there was an article by somebody who's I think Sharon Begley or something, who's a kind of science correspondent for the Boston Globe, and the article was about basically you know, that thing, know thyself, you know, the above the is it on the door of the gate of Apollo's temple or something, and her basic thing was saying, oh, the evidence is that this is a bad idea, or something along those lines, you know, like it might not be good for you to look too closely into knowing thyself, you know. So I just thought, hang on a minute, this is you know, this is kind of political, really, you know, like don't think too much about things, you know, just carry on with your job.
well, you can't, I mean, again, you know, it's like you immediately step into that deep water, don't you? What did they mean by no? What would what would be the word that's getting translated as no from the Greek?
Yeah.
You know, our idea of knowing tends to be very kind of factual, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe their knowing was, you know, more to do with the mysteries, you know, knowing that having penetrated the mysteries.
Yeah.
Actual knowledge, you know, the deeper heart knowledge.
I suppose it's like not just kind of the knowing of like Apollo, the bright, you know, the brightness and light and all that. It's more the knowing of everything, the depths and knowing of all the gods, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, Apollo can't really exist without Dionysus, can it? That's it. We're going back to this multi-fractional nature of psyche, aren't we? You can't just have Apollo. To just have Apollo would be appalling.
Yeah.
To have Apollo without Dionysus is appalling idea. This is what we tend to want. We just want the one. We want certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apollo is good for certainty. I mean, it's a far-sighted one, isn't it, Apollo?
Yeah.
He's good for certainty. But he's rubbish in other situations, He wasn't much in the love department, was he, Apollo?
Wasn't he?
But I don't think so, no. No, I think it was a bit, a bit removed,
Yeah.
bit removed,
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I mean, well, you know your Heidegger a bit, don't you? I mean, I think, of course, it's not original to him, but I find that very useful, this idea he's got of, whenever you reveal one thing, you conceal something else. When you shine a bright light on something, it's like the light's too bright, isn't it?
Yeah.
You shine a light on one thing, something else falls into the shadows.
Yeah.
And it's Apollo, it's the hubris of Apollo, the heroic idea that everything can be brought into light at the same time. And this, in our culture, gets translated as this idea of solutions, the solution.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be solved, everything needs to be dragged into the light and examined.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of our psychic material, it needs to be experienced on its own terms.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't need to be dragged into objective, logical.
Yeah. Well, I think
it would never make sense.
Yeah.
We laugh, we joke. These things are never going to make sense. Beauty doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah. I mean, I get this. That thing where you get the the qualities that the qualities of the Buddha can never be known. That sort of sentiment in Buddhism, where, and in a way, that is like sort of saying, well, you think you know, we don't. It's like I think there always needs to be this. Taking away of this the certainty, that you think and in a way, I suppose, like whatever enlightenment is, it's like you're only really going to know it when you actually, if and when you actually get there, and it isn't kind of accessible in a way to people who are not experiencing it. So maybe that's the equivalent of you can't know everything. You can't know everything. You have to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's deep water, isn't it? I mean, you bump into the limitation of language, don't you, quite early on, really, when you start. Enlightenment.
Yeah.
When you said enlightenment, I was thinking, well, you need, along with an enlightenment, you need an endarkenment as well. You've got to go in both directions. I mean, this is what I sometimes find a little bit uncomfortable about Buddhism, is ascending mode,
Yeah.
It's upward ascent, where I think that, obviously fine, but it needs to be balanced by a descent. Or experientially, insight tends to come from a descent. But not always, can't generalize. But I think insight tends to occur through descent rather than ascent. Which I think is in line with the Buddha's life story. You look at the myth of the Buddha, he believes different teachers and attaining these very elevated, defined, purified mental state.
Yeah.
And he thinks, well, but I still haven't quite got it here, It's only when he's about, he's been a skeptic for however many, 5 or 7 years or however long he's practicing this very severe skepticism, brings himself to the point of death.
Yeah.
Does he really get insight, or he gets another level of insight,
Yeah.
I think, well, actually, no, this is what,
Yeah.
I mean, now, to bring it back around to embodiment, of course, it's a re-embodiment, isn't it, for the Buddha, or the Buddha to be, after this skeptic period where he's trying to free the spirit from the body, by punishing the body, isn't he? Trying to overcome the body. At some point he realizes, no, I need to be re-embodied. And he takes food and And he re-embodies the psyche. He brings the psyche back into the body rather than wanting the psyche to go off, leave the body, be pure, be without. The separation of the material and the spiritual.
Which is Hinduism, isn't it? Yeah.
Our job is to bring the spiritual down into the material, not to separate. And this is when I say, for me, body and psyche, the body is a vessel of the psyche, and the body gives us access to the psyche. That's what I'm talking about. So when I'm talking about embodied meditation, I'm talking about a psyche being embodied, re-embodied. And when we open that out into the world, we start talking in terms of re-enchanting the world, giving psyche back to the world. So we don't literally have to believe that trees all have spirit and psyche, but we do emotionally have to believe that. Otherwise, we're going to continue fucking it up, Because we don't really give a shit, do we? If we don't believe that everything's got psyche on an emotional level, it just becomes a standing resource. Okay? It's another commodification. And we will go on thinking the world is just here for us to consume. What a bloody vision of the world is that? It's just here for us to consume. Like fat little pigs or something. I don't know. It's horrible, isn't it? But I don't know, just.
Yeah.
So there's, for us, there's a re-embodiment in a way. And I do believe that can open up to real enchantment in the world.
Yeah.
Necessarily think human beings are the centre of everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been talking quite a long time now, haven't we?
Yeah, it's about the whole session is about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe I've got to go and feed the tortoise now.
Have you? How big is it?
Well, it's an imaginary tortoise.
Oh well.
It could
It's
be
very compassionate of you to think of it.
It
is imaginary.
Size you want.
Hey?
It can be what size you want.
Yeah.
Whatever size.
I'll have a 3 foot wide one.
I don't think you can get tortoises anymore, can you? Isn't it illegal to?
I don't know. Yeah.
Can you get them anymore?
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's maybe they breed them over here. I think it's actually illegal to import.
Yeah.
They're nice. They were quite nice.
I like terrapins. They were nice, little ones.
They'd nip you, wouldn't they? I used to have terrapins. they grew quite big. They were quite big at one point.
Yeah.
But my brother and I remember my brother came home once, he was drunk, from the pub, and he was with his girl, trying to show off his girlfriend. They got his tail thing out of the tank, and waved at it and bit his nose. That should give you a bit of a nip,
Yeah.
Bit his nose. So anyway, that's a claim to fame, isn't it? Knows a bit about himself. Well, on that bombshell,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
So you want me back at the same time tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Yeah. And just lead whatever you like, Yeah.
Do a bit of meditation with the folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, have a nice day.
Yeah. See you later.
Yeah.